Hey guys, Jay and Flamer Gamer here, and welcome. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a different one, because today I'm actually going to be talking about a game I attempted a Let's Play at near the very start of my channel. However, due to technical issues and a copyright claim, I wasn't able to finish that Let's Play. But I'm not going to give up on it. This game is fantastic and definitely worth mentioning, and it's called Concrete Genie. Roll the video. So the story of Concrete Genie takes place in a small port town known as Denska, a once lively, bustling, and prosperous place that's unfortunately fallen upon some pretty tough times recently due to a natural disaster occurring and polluting it when a tanker ship crashed just off the coast, spilling its contents into the waters below. So he plays a young teenage boy named Ash, who enjoys creating quirky little pictures and creatures in his sketchbook, and dreams of restoring his hometown of Denska back to its former glory, just the way that he remembered it. However, with dreams come nightmares, and not everyone left around shares in his artistic vision for the town's revival. Okay, so you see there's this group of bullies who like to torment poor Ash, and seemingly go out of their way to make his life an absolute misery. They even go so far as to steal his sketchbook away so they can play a game of keep away, which ultimately ends with one of the bullies ripping out all the pages from the book, scattering them to the wind. And so the confrontation ends with the bullies shoving Ash onto the aerial tramway, sending him off the mainland and to the lighthouse just off the coast, which is the first area of the game. Now I'll get back to talking about the bullies a little later on in the video, but for now, I want to touch on some of the gameplay mechanics of Concrete Genie itself. And boy, there are a few different gameplay mechanics in this game. Apart from the stock standard running, jumping, and climbing, the game's a little bit all over the place with what it wants to do, but still manages to come together in a cohesive way to bring a fun, refreshing experience for its players. Now I do want to talk about the main mechanic of the game first, which is probably its crowning achievement. So when you arrive at the lighthouse, Ash manages to somehow bring one of his quirky little monster sketches to life, and is gifted with a magic paintbrush the size of a golf club that'll be a key tool in Ash's quest to bring his hometown of Denska back to life. And so, with the magic paintbrush in hand, you're given the ability to create your own living works of art. You can pretty much create whatever you want in respect to the icons that are on the left, and you do gain heaps more of those as the game progresses. You can make your living work of art as complicated and as intricate as you want. Now there is a paint limit, but you have to go pretty crazy if you want to reach it. I think I'll finish this living piece of art off with some butterflies. Perfect. You can even take a complete minimalist approach and do something that's really quick and simple. As long as it lights up all the light bulbs in all the sections of the game, you're pretty much good to go. You can be as intricate and as complicated, or as quick, simple, and minimalistic as you choose. I call this piece Lonely Tree. I know, very innovative. You're also given the ability to create your own living, breathing creatures called genies, and just like the paintings, you can make these as complicated and intricate, or as simple and minimalistic as you choose. Now the three different types of genies are as followed. Red represents fire, and these genies will help burn down red tarps that hold you back from progressing throughout the game. The yellow genies represent electricity, and they can be used to power all sorts of different things, from control panels to open gates, to vehicles, to other electrical items too. And finally, there's the blue genies that represent wind, which can be used to move heavy objects out of the way with a gust of air, or move platforms to create a bridge to inaccessible areas. Now when you do arrive back on the mainland, you realize that the bullies haven't gone all that far at all, and they're still hanging around, waiting to find you so they can hunt you down. Upon escaping the bullies, you're ready to go. The goal of the game is pretty simple. Light up all the light bulbs in each of the 4 sections of the game. Once you've done so, you unlock a masterpiece for that section. Upon completing that masterpiece, you restore that specific part of the town of Denska back to life. There's also a helpful interface for when you press the start menu, which opens up the map of the area which includes the location of all your genies, the location of all the pages in the area, all the lights that you need to light up in the area, and everything in general. Now, I'd also like to mention that if you're not a big fan of motion controls themselves, the game's got you covered there as well. By pressing the Start menu, you go into this interface, head over to the Option tab, head down to Game, and then head to Painting Controls. You can alternate between motion controls and the right stick whenever you choose. Now, there's also some light stealth mechanics introduced early on in the game that will help you sneak around without the bullies noticing you. And even if they do notice you, there's a simple parkour mechanic that will help you scale the town's buildings to avoid the gang. Oh, and you can also whistle from these positions to distract the gang and have them move away from a place you're trying to get to as well. Who knows, maybe Ash has the potential to join the Assassin's Brotherhood as well as be an artist. And of course, there's ziplining to help you get around town a little bit quicker. However, if the bullies do catch you, they end up throwing you in a dumpster and just leaving you there, which is a pretty douchebaggy thing to do, but luckily you don't take any physical damage, just emotional and mental damage. The game also has a bunch of collectibles for you to snatch up as well. These range from newspaper articles that are found scattered all around that tell the story of what happened to the town of Denska itself, that you can read at your own leisure, to collecting pages from Ash's torn up sketchbook that can range from different designs that you can paint the walls with, to also different designs for your genies so that you can customize them how you choose to. It's kind of like a modern take on a 90s style collectathon game like Super Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie just off the top of my head. So that's pretty much most of the mechanics of Concrete Genie. That's right, I said most, not all, because the game has another surprise for us in store. And yes, I'm aware that I'm wearing a different shirt because I'm recording this on a different day. But before we go on, I'd like to talk more about the bullies, about bullying itself, and how it's portrayed throughout the game. So there are 5 kids of a similar age to our protagonist that still live in the now derelict town of Denska. Beatrice, the former leader of the gang, and still probably the brains of the group. Chuck, the current leader of the gang, and definitely the brawn of the group, and his sister Janie, who's mainly there to support her big bro. As well as Zach, and finally Froggy, who seems to only be a part of the gang as a kind of front so that he himself isn't the bullied victim. But why? Why do these kids bully Ash? Why do people bully each other, period? It's an age-old question that many, if not most of us, have asked at some point or another. There have been multiple studies done and many different answers reached, but to me personally, bullying takes on many sinister forms. From ignorance and insecurities to being raised in an unsupportive environment, and also attempts to fit into a group. But I'll try to break it down into something a bit more bite-sized. So commonly, it's an action or actions carried out by those who have their own internal challenges or fears they are unwilling or incapable of overcoming for themselves at that point in time. It can be a tool of intimidation that is used to suppress others who may be considered vulnerable, weak, or different. It's a reaction that can be brought on by jealousy of what others have, physically, intellectually, financially, etc. And it's also a lot about power and asserting dominance over others where they are not usually able to be a dominant figure in their own personal life. Now, as I mentioned, this is just my personal opinion on bullying. I'm sure yours may be quite different. Anyways, back on topic. Also, spoiler warning, so you might want to skip to the 11th minute of the video if you don't want me to ruin anything. So throughout the game, Ash runs into the gang several times, and several times, the bullies try to snatch your paintbrush away. With each attempt, you're given a flashback scene of that bully's past or even present situations. What their life is like behind closed doors, behind their facade that masks their private despair. As we can see from this animated scene, Zach's home life is anything but peaceful. With his parents constantly fighting and bickering, he feels the need to run away. Maybe this is why he joined the gang in the first place, so he could find a new family, away from the one he was born into, a family that he chose. We also see what happens to Chuck and Janie when they try to take Ash's paintbrush. We see another animated scene of the siblings as little children. The scene is a little vague, and I guess open to interpretation, so my guess is that the parents divorced, and little Chuck and Janie were taken either by their mother or into foster care. Two siblings from a broken home might also be seeking acceptance into a new family. Maybe that's why they joined the gang. And finally, we see what Beatrice's personal life is like. In another quick but beautifully designed animated scene, we see Beatrice also as a child going to visit who one would assume to be her father, who's been locked up in prison for some unspecified crime he's committed. Seeing a loved one held in such a big scary place through the eyes of a child would be truly terrifying and heartbreaking. We don't see her mother at all, but we clearly see she is close to her dad, and his current situation is too much for her to bear. She may even have felt abandoned by him. But does this justify their actions? To me personally, not really. There never really is a way to justify bullying others. But I do think that there's a reason as to why they bully Ash the way that they do. And I've come up with a theory on what that might be. If we go back to the opening scene of the game, we see Ash sitting on the pier reading a letter from his parents, which reads, "My Ash, Dad and I will be late again, so please eat something. You're still a growing boy. Mum." Followed by, "P.S. Please stay out of Denska, okay? It's too dangerous now. I'm not kidding." So this would indicate that from what we can tell, Ash's parents are still together, and that he and his family must have moved away from Denska either before or shortly after the disaster occurred in town. But Ash still returns to this place because it still feels like home, a home he misses dearly. So my theory is that the bullies act out of jealousy of Ash. After all, his family is still together, and they got out of town before it went to hell. Also, his parents encouraged and nurtured his talent in art, whereas perhaps the other kids didn't receive that same encouragement, and perhaps this is why they act like they hate Ash and his art. Notice that we don't see or hear anything about Froggy. Maybe he's just not as important of a character. Maybe the developers rushed it. Or maybe we don't see his tragic personal life because he never had one. It would support what I mentioned about him earlier only being part of the gang as a kind of front. So anyways, I did mention that the game had another surprise in store for us, so let's dive in and see. Concrete Genie suddenly shifts to becoming a full-blown action-adventure game after a certain point that I won't spoil. But after certain events, your goal changes from restoring Denska to saving it from being enveloped in darkness. You're taken back to the lighthouse, where we discover that most of the bullies that have been tormenting you all this time have now been taken captive by the darkness and shoved into a perpetual state of their own torment, reliving their most traumatic moments over and over again. So, Ash decides to head out and save his once tormentors turned victims from their everlasting nightmares by using his paintbrush, a tool once used to create, now used to beat back the darkness once and for all. You're gifted with a final ability to paint skate, which allows for quick and fluid traversal through the town, which I would have loved to see introduced early on, but for story purposes, it's introduced later. In this final push to restore your hometown, enemies become friends, and friends become enemies. But I'll leave it on that note and let you discover what happens next for yourself. Thank you so much for watching my video on Concrete Genie. I hope you enjoyed and maybe even learned something. After taking Millie a week off to sort out some personal matters, I couldn't wait to get back and make this video for you guys. It was definitely a challenge, but I learnt so much when making this video, and I'll continue to do so. Remember, if you did like the video, don't forget to leave a like and a comment in the section below. Both positive and negative comments are both welcome. And hit that subscribe button to stay notified for more upcoming videos on my channel. Thanks again, I've been Jay and Flamer Gamer. Have a great day or night, wherever you are. Catch you later.